Blake Lively just lost everything she fought for and Hollywood is in shock. Blake Lively just suffered the kind of loss that sends shockwaves through the very core of celebrity culture. The courtroom was silent, the cameras weren't rolling. But the moment the judge dismissed her lawsuit against media consultant Jed Wallace, a chill swept through Hollywood. And no one saw it coming, not the public, not the press, and certainly not Blake Lively's legal team. For months this case was wrapped in high-profile tension. What started as a quiet legal dispute quickly exploded into something much bigger. A battle over power, reputation, and free speech in the age of influencer celebrity. Lively, one of the most protected names in the industry, had launched an aggressive defamation suit, claiming Wallace had crossed a line damaging her name through veiled statements and industry whispers. But when that claim hit the courtroom, everything began to fall apart. Because here's the truth, the judge didn't just reject her case, he dismantled it. In a ruling that media lawyers are already calling a landmark, the court found that Wallace's statements were legally protected commentary, opinion rooted in public interest, not personal attack. In doing so, the judge delivered a devastating blow to Lively's carefully curated image. Her attempt to control the narrative didn't just backfire, it exposed everything she tried to keep hidden. Now the tables have turned. Content creators, legal analysts, and fellow celebrities are all speaking out. Some are applauding the court's decision as a win for free speech. Others are questioning how a star like Blake Lively, once thought untouchable, could so badly miscalculate. And behind the scenes, PR teams are panicking. Because if Blake can lose in court this publicly, who's really safe? This isn't just about one lawsuit. This is about what happens when fame collides with truth and the truth refuses to back down. Blake Lively walked into court trying to silence a critic, but she walked out having amplified his voice tenfold. And in doing so, she's ignited a conversation far bigger than herself. What you're about to hear is the full breakdown of how this all unfolded, from the first legal filing to the final courtroom verdict. We're pulling back the velvet rope and taking you behind closed doors into a world of celebrity secrets, legal strategies, and the unraveling of one of Hollywood's most pristine images. So buckle up, because the fallout has just begun. And when the dust settles, one thing will be clear: Blake Lively didn't just lose a lawsuit, she lost control. The courtroom lights may not have been as glamorous as the red carpet, but they illuminated a shocking truth this week. In a jaw-dropping legal twist, Hollywood A-lister Blake Lively has just suffered a major courtroom defeat that sent ripples through the entertainment industry. After months of intense scrutiny, tabloid speculation, and relentless headlines, a judge has officially dismissed her lawsuit against Jed Wallace, a move no one, especially not her legal team, was prepared for. This wasn't just any case. This lawsuit was shaping up to be a defining moment in Blake Lively's public narrative, a supposed opportunity for her to reassert control over a rapidly fraying image. But now that image is more fragile than ever. The judge's ruling didn't just deny her claims, it dismantled them with precision, suggesting that Lively's legal strategy may have been built more on optics than on substance. Let's rewind the tape. This entire debacle began when Blake Lively initiated a defamation lawsuit against media consultant and independent strategist Jed Wallace. At the heart of the case were a series of confidential communications and public interviews Wallace had conducted, where he hinted at unethical practices allegedly used by Lively's PR team in ongoing celebrity disputes. While Wallace never named Lively directly, insiders and industry observers immediately linked his statements to her most recent controversies, including her contentious legal battle with Justin Baldoni and behind-the-scenes friction in the Hollywood elite circle. Lively's lawyers painted Wallace as a malicious actor, someone allegedly trying to profit off her name by stoking public gossip. They framed the case as a fight for dignity, privacy, and protection against slander. But as the trial progressed, the story started to unravel. The judge's final ruling cited lack of credible factual foundation, insufficient evidence of actual malice, and perhaps most importantly, an overreach of legal authority aimed at suppressing protected speech. This wasn't a quiet ruling behind closed doors. The decision was rendered in open court and swiftly picked up by legal reporters, who described the moment as devastating for Lively's camp. Witnesses in the gallery reported that Lively appeared visibly stunned as the judge read the decision. Her legal team, composed of some of the most high-profile names in entertainment law, had reportedly been confident in their position, but confidence doesn't hold much weight when the law and the evidence says otherwise. And then there's the Jed Wallace factor. A seasoned professional with ties to several influential media firms, Wallace has made a name for himself as a no-nonsense consultant who doesn't shy away from uncomfortable truths. In his legal filings, he maintained that his commentary was protected opinion, grounded in industry patterns and whistleblower accounts, not a direct attack on any individual. His legal strategy was sharp, calm, and incredibly effective. As the judge noted, Wallace's right to express opinions on matters of public interest is protected under both the First Amendment and prevailing case law. What makes this even more stunning is that Blake Lively's entire argument hinged on proving that Wallace's words were not just reckless but malicious. That's a high legal bar, and one that her team failed to meet without clear evidence that Wallace knew he was spreading falsehoods and did so with intent to harm. The defamation claim crumbled. The judge's ruling even referenced New York Times v. Sullivan, the landmark case that sets the standard for proving actual malice in defamation cases involving public figures. The ruling has been called a wake-up call by legal experts, who suggest that celebrities and their teams need to think twice before filing lawsuits that tread dangerously close to silencing critical voices. There's a growing trend of public figures trying to weaponize defamation law against commentary and opinion, said one legal analyst. But courts are increasingly pushing back, and this is a perfect example. Public reaction has been swift and polarized. On social media, hashtags like hashtag Blake Lively court loss, hashtag Jed Wallace vindicated, and hashtag free speech wins began trending within hours. Fans of Wallace praised him for standing his ground, while some of Lively's supporters expressed shock and confusion. "I thought she had a solid case," one fan tweeted. "How did this fall apart so fast?" Insiders suggest that Lively's team may have underestimated Wallace's legal preparedness and overestimated the power of narrative. In the age of digital storytelling, controlling public perception can sometimes feel more powerful than the truth. But in a courtroom, perception isn't enough, you need hard evidence. And in this case, the evidence didn't align with the claims. Even more interestingly, this court loss could ripple into Blake Lively's other ongoing legal entanglements. She is still embroiled in the heated defamation war with Justin Baldoni, where her team is aggressively pursuing discovery and pushing back against motions to unseal private communications. But if this ruling is any indication, the courts may be growing weary of cases that appear more performative than substantive. And let's not ignore the impact on Hollywood PR itself. For years, Blake Lively has been known not only for her acting chops but for her carefully curated public image. Her interviews are polished, her Instagram is aesthetically impeccable, her relationship with Ryan Reynolds is packaged like a romantic fairy tale. But this ruling peels back the curtain, revealing a far more strategic, sometimes even aggressive, approach to narrative control behind the scenes. Jed Wallace's legal team released a statement shortly after the ruling, thanking the judge for upholding the integrity of public discourse. "Our client is relieved that the court recognized the importance of free expression, especially when it pertains to powerful figures and institutions. This is a win for every journalist, commentator, and creator who speaks truth to power." As for Blake Lively, her team issued a brief, tightly worded response that acknowledged the dismissal, but insisted they respectfully disagree with the ruling and are exploring options. Whether that means an appeal or simply regrouping for future legal strategy remains unclear. But one thing is certain: the days of Lively using the courtroom to silence uncomfortable voices may be over, or at least significantly curtailed. What happens next could redefine how celebrities interact with the media, critics, and even fans. If Wallace's victory sets a precedent, others may follow his lead, refusing to back down when threatened with legal intimidation. And if more judges take a stand like this one, then the courtroom may soon become a much less friendly place for stars seeking to shield their reputations at all costs. But for now, Blake Lively finds herself in unfamiliar territory, on the losing end of a very public, very consequential courtroom battle. And the silence from her usual Hollywood defenders deafening. As the dust settles from the stunning court decision, more details are emerging about what happened behind the scenes inside that courtroom and beyond it. This wasn't just a legal setback for Blake Lively, it was a full-scale collapse of a carefully curated legal and public relations campaign. When Blake Lively first filed her lawsuit against Jed Wallace, her legal team struck a bold and theatrical tone. They accused Wallace of spreading misinformation, defaming her character, and causing professional and emotional distress. The complaint was framed to suggest a direct and malicious attack, one that Lively's lawyers believed would be easily proven through discovery and cross-examination. But once both sides presented their arguments in court, it became clear that Wallace had anticipated this attack months in advance. His lawyers came to court armed not only with transcripts and documented sources for every comment he made, but also with receipts, context, and legal precedent. Every time Lively's lawyers presented a soundbite or quote, Wallace's team was able to demonstrate Its context public commentary on celebrity legal tactics or industry-wide analysis, never directly targeting Lively herself. That distinction between pointed opinion and personal defamation became the centerpiece of the court's deliberation. And in the judge's written ruling, it was clear Blake Lively's legal team could not draw a straight factual line between Wallace's statements and actual harm to her name or career. Even more damning was the discovery process or lack thereof. According to insiders, Lively's team was either unwilling or unable to produce the kind of internal documentation that would have bolstered their case. There were hints at private emails and memos suggesting Wallace acted with bias or intent, but none of that ever materialized in court. In fact, sources close to the case say some of those documents were either redacted or withheld, citing confidentiality and third-party agreements. This tactic may have worked in the world of celebrity management, but in a court of law, withholding potential evidence often backfires, and in this case, it severely weakened Lively's credibility. Jed Wallace, meanwhile, didn't just defend himself, he countered gently but effectively. His attorney submitted evidence of public interest, commentary, expert analysis from other media figures, and his long-standing reputation as a media consultant who frequently critiques Hollywood image control. Rather than painting himself as a victim, Wallace calmly reinforced the importance of open dialogue and protected speech in a democracy. One legal filing from Wallace's team cited several public interviews where he clearly stated that he was speaking about trends in celebrity legal behavior and not attacking any specific individual. Another court exhibit even showed Wallace warning interviewers off naming names, emphasizing that his work was meant to provoke industry reflection, not to stir scandal. The judge seemed to take this at face value, repeatedly referring to Wallace's statements as opinionated but non-defamatory, and noting that Lively's team had failed to demonstrate that the speech was intended as anything more than cultural critique. One courtroom moment, as described by legal correspondents in attendance, captured the entire tone of the case. When Lively's lead attorney tried to link Wallace's commentary to a specific downturn in Lively's brand endorsements, the judge interrupted to ask, "Do you have any evidence those decisions were made because of Mr. Wallace's interviews? Or are we simply speculating?" The courtroom reportedly fell silent. That question pierced straight through the argument, and it echoed throughout the final ruling, where the judge concluded that no causal connection had been proven between Wallace's speech and any quantifiable damage to Blake Lively's career. And this raises a bigger, more uncomfortable question. For the celebrity world, are defamation lawsuits becoming a strategic tool for silencing critics? Are high-profile figures using the threat of litigation to stifle conversation? Jed Wallace's attorneys think so, and they didn't shy away from saying it in court. One of the most powerful statements in their closing argument was this: "We cannot allow celebrities to rewrite journalism through intimidation. The court must remain a place where speech is judged on fact, not fame." That statement resonated far beyond the courtroom. In the days following the dismissal, media outlets and content creators began reflecting on their own experiences with legal threats and takedown notices from celebrity teams. One entertainment podcaster tweeted, "We've all been on the edge about speaking out. This ruling might just give us some air to breathe. In Hollywood, perception is everything, but in court, perception without evidence is nothing." And the judge's ruling laid that bare. A legal strategist who followed the case closely noted this wasn't just a win for Wallace. It's a clear message to PR teams who think lawsuits are a shortcut to silencing critique. That door just got slammed. And what about Blake Lively's team? Some insiders are saying the damage control has already begun. There are rumors of emergency meetings with PR advisors, hush-hush discussions about next steps, and even an internal audit of how the legal strategy went so wrong so quickly. For someone with Lively's level of fame and media control, losing a public lawsuit this spectacularly is almost unthinkable. The impact is already being felt. A luxury fashion brand that had previously been in talks with Lively for a campaign quietly pulled out this week. One media agency executive, speaking on condition of anonymity, said, "We're seeing the ripple effects already. Brands don't want to align with controversy, especially legal controversy involving speech and silencing." There are also whispers that Blake's team is trying to pivot the narrative, framing the lawsuit dismissal as a strategic regrouping rather than a defeat. But public records tell the true story. The lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled. That's not just a procedural loss, that's a full-on legal knockout. And still, Lively herself has remained largely silent, aside from a brief statement through her rep. That silence ironically speaks volumes. For someone who has built her career on controlling the narrative, carefully managing interviews, press cycles, and red carpet appearances being rendered voiceless in the legal sphere must feel like unfamiliar terrain. It's worth remembering that this entire legal drama didn't start in a vacuum. It unfolded during one of the most turbulent times in Blake Lively's public life. Her feud with Justin Baldoni had already opened the door to media scrutiny, the leaked texts, the legal back and forth, the mounting public criticism, and now, this loss to Jed Wallace adds another painful chapter to a growing list of PR disasters. And let's not forget the irony: the lawsuit that was meant to protect her reputation may have damaged it more than anything Wallace ever said. As one industry commentator put it, she went in trying to shut down the noise and instead, she turned up the volume. The court ruling may have put an end to Blake Lively's legal pursuit of Jed Wallace, but it opened a much larger and more volatile conversation across Hollywood. What was once a private legal dispute between a celebrity and a media strategist has now morphed into a full-blown reckoning for the world of public relations, content creation, and the once unquestioned authority of the celebrity elite. In the days following the judge's dismissal of the lawsuit, calls and emails flooded into PR firms, law offices, and content creator inboxes. Hollywood had woken up to a new reality: the era of litigation as silencer might be coming to an end, and the message from the Wallace ruling was loud and clear: speech, even when uncomfortable, is still protected, and truth, no matter how inconvenient, can no longer be managed with non-disclosure agreements and legal intimidation. Within media circles, the Wallace decision is already being described as the Gawker v. Hogan turning point of this generation, but in reverse. Instead of a lawsuit destroying a media voice, this time the court protected one, and unlike other recent cases involving tabloid journalism, this wasn't about scandalous details or personal invasions. It was about commentary, critique, and the growing tension between the curated image and the unfiltered narrative. PR firms, once the unseen hands guiding celebrity brand preservation, are suddenly under the microscope. Several top-tier Hollywood publicists have privately admitted that their clients are now asking questions they haven't heard before. One source shared they want to know if legal action is still a valid threat, or if it's just going to blow up in their faces like it did with Blake. The concern isn't just about legal defeat, it's about image collapse. Lively's failed lawsuit didn't just cost her legally, it fractured the perception of her invincibility. For years, Blake Lively has been one of the few Hollywood stars who has maintained a near-flawless public image: stylish, witty, grounded, and romantically idealized. Through her high-profile marriage to Ryan Reynolds, but legal defeat humanizes, and worse, it exposes. In this case, the exposure wasn't about scandalous behavior, but about strategy, about intent. The public isn't outraged over something Blake did, they're unsettled by what she tried to do: weaponize the court system against a critic. And that subtle shift in narrative is a dangerous one for any celebrity brand to navigate. Meanwhile, the content creator world is watching with cautious optimism. Many YouTubers, podcast hosts, and independent journalists have long operated under the looming threat of cease and desist letters from celebrity lawyers. The Blake Lively v. Jed Wallace case is now being seen as a possible turning point, a moment when the court reaffirmed that public figures cannot use their power to dictate discourse. One content creator who previously received a warning letter from Lively's legal team after posting a critical commentary video said, "I used to worry if I'd get sued just for speaking the truth, but now I feel like I can breathe again." Wallace stood up to her and he won. That changes things. Another prominent Hollywood commentator tweeted, "Blake Lively just taught a masterclass in what not to do when you want to silence a critic. Instead of shutting him down, she elevated his voice and lost her own in the process." Across the board, reaction videos, commentary segments, and think pieces are pouring in. Some are sympathetic, noting that celebrities are often under enormous pressure to protect their brand, but many others are uncompromising. They argue that this lawsuit was never about justice, it was about control. And control, when exposed, is never flattering. There's also been an unspoken effect among Lively's celebrity peers. Publicly, few have commented on the ruling, but privately the silence is telling. According to industry insiders, multiple A-list friends who previously rallied around Lively during her feud with Baldoni have now pulled back, worried that aligning too closely with a legal loser could make them look vulnerable too. The most surprising shift has come from those in Blake's own inner PR circle. Several longtime associates and brand managers have reportedly expressed deep concern over the handling of the lawsuit and are now reconsidering their association with her public image. One former consultant was quoted as saying she should have let it go. Jed Wallace wasn't doing damage until she made him headline news. And that's the truth of it. By suing Wallace, Lively brought attention to something that most people hadn't even noticed: His remarks were obscure, buried within niche interviews and legal commentary. But once the lawsuit hit the press, the Streisand effect kicked in. Suddenly everyone wanted to know what Wallace had said. They read his statements. They listened to his podcasts. They analyzed every word. And in the end, many people agreed with him. Even nowadays, after the verdict, clips of Wallace's commentary are going viral across platforms like TikTok, Twitter, X, and YouTube. Creators are remixing his quotes, turning them into sound bites, analyzing them, and using them to criticize broader celebrity behavior. One particularly viral clip has Wallace saying celebrities can't keep suing people for not believing the myth, "The world is smarter now." That line alone has been viewed over 8 million times, and here's where things take a deeper turn. Because Blake Lively's legal defeat doesn't just affect her, it reshapes the battleground of her war with Justin Baldoni. Wallace's commentary, while not directly about Baldoni, touched on themes that now echo in that separate courtroom. Themes of manipulation, narrative control, and legal pressure. Baldoni's legal team is already signaling they may file a motion to cite this dismissal as part of a broader argument against Lively's pattern of behavior. In a preliminary statement, a representative for Baldoni said this ruling reflects what we've said from the beginning. Attempts to control the truth through litigation are dangerous, and now courts are recognizing that. And if Baldoni does push to connect the two cases, Blake Lively could be in even deeper trouble. Because suddenly her loss to Wallace becomes more than just a PR blunder. It becomes potential legal leverage for her opponent in a completely different arena. This cross-contamination of court narratives is rare but not unheard of, and with the public now more informed and more invested than ever before, the stakes just got exponentially higher. Because what Blake Lively is fighting for now isn't just a court win. It's survival of her image, her brand deals, and possibly even her influence within the elite circles of Hollywood. Already rumors are surfacing that Netflix and Amazon executives who had previously expressed interest in Lively-led projects are quietly reevaluating. Streaming platforms rely on audience goodwill, and right now Lively's brand is radiating volatility. One insider said, "You can be controversial, you can be misunderstood, but when a court says you tried to suppress speech, that's a PR nightmare. The damage isn't irreversible, but it is significant. And unless Lively makes major changes to her legal strategy, public posture, and perhaps even her representation, she may find herself fighting an uphill battle on multiple fronts for months, if not years to come." Blake Lively's loss in court wasn't just a legal defeat, it was a revealing moment that pulled back the curtain on how celebrity power can unravel under scrutiny. In a world where image is everything and control is currency, the courtroom provided an equalizer, and this time that equalizer didn't swing in Lively's favor. By going after Jed Wallace, a media strategist whose critiques were protected commentary, Blake didn't silence the noise, she amplified it. The judge's dismissal wasn't just about one case. It marked a broader shift, a warning to the PR-driven world of Hollywood that truth, speech, and critical thought are still protected, even when they're inconvenient.